We are live. Garnet Old show, 7 o'clock. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. I'm Ryan. We have Doug Rohan joining us on the show tonight. And all the way from the middle of the ocean, Vince Ciccarelli.
Hey,
Technology
everybody.
is undefeated.
Yeah. Is that you throwing it to me, Ryan?
Yeah, Vince, tell us what's
Okay.
going on. How's your cruise?
Yeah, first of all, this is Garnet Old. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. Captain Black did not represent this studio. He did not give me all this. But this background studio I have here is courtesy of Royal Caribbean Oasis of the Seas. And I'm currently in the boardwalk area of the ship, which if you've ever been to a boardwalk, what do you have at the boardwalk? You got a carousel. You got a hot dog stand right behind me here. You got Johnny Rockets over here where you can get all the diner food you want, milkshakes, you got it. This line you see right here is people trying to sign up to do axe throwing.
Well, Vince, I have to ask you because I know you've been on a lot of cruises, and we'll get to Florida State stuff in a second. But you have never been on this class of ship, the Oasis class of ship, which is only the second largest in Royal's fleet now with the Icon of the Seas. But give us your review, your 2-minute review, Vince. What do you think of the Oasis of the Seas?
Yeah, so first of all, this is the biggest ship that I've ever been on. I think it will hold about 6,500 to 7,000 passengers, and that is crazy to me. But, you know, one of the things I told you, Ryan, before I went on this cruise, this is the first cruise that I've been on where the middle of the ship is like open, right? So those are balconies, right? They're inward facing balconies down to the boardwalk. Now, you may not get a lot of sleep here when the show is going on over here with the Aqua show where people are diving into a pool. By the way, technical difficulties the night that we tried to see it, so we have not seen the show yet. And then over on the other side of the ship, we are currently on the aft part of the ship. On the bow, the forward part of the ship, they have a park area, like a central park. Like you're walking through there, and there are places to sit and eat al fresco. They've had some jazz groups playing out there. By the way, that's where a lot of people hide their ducks, right? And so just the fact that I don't feel so enclosed because the middle of the ship is open has been amazing.
Well, Vince, what else has been amazing? And we're going to kick it over to Doug for a bunch of items tonight, not just football, but baseball too, wrapping up that. It's been a big weekend and an Oasis class size weekend, Vince, for Noles recruitment. So I'm going to get to a few items here. Let's start by the news of the day, which is we did get a yes from a 4-star wide receiver, Brandon Bennett, coming over to Florida State, picking the Noles. Big pickup because we also had a decommitment in the last week. So, Doug, I'm going to kick it over to you. Just give me your top level view on. I mean, that's a big get. We need some wide receivers.
Yeah, it's a 4-star wide receiver that picked us over Georgia. Now, look, maybe he was 4 or 5 on the list of Georgia, but we need to get back to where we're getting the scraps off the table from Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State, because the last 2 years we weren't even getting that. So we're back in a familiar position, and that's fine. You know, maybe he's number 1, maybe he's number 2. We'll find out soon. But the entire recruiting momentum was dead in the water after the 5-star QB committed to Houston. We're going to talk about that a little bit later also. We needed some good news. We needed some wins. 4-star, high 3-star, whatever you want to call it. Look, I don't care about stars anymore. let's see if they even stick around 2 years. But it's good news on the trail. It's not egg on our face. And to that extent, I had a thought that I just wanted to share with your viewers. And I know you've got great, intelligent viewers, but to the Twitter naysayers, to the people that are out there frustrated, I get your frustration. I know it feels like we keep losing players to Ole Miss, to Arkansas, to Ohio State. But keep in mind, we have our list of our recruiting board, and we're not losing all of them to Ole Miss. We're not losing all of them to Ohio State. Maybe that person is higher on the list for one of these other teams. There's only going to be so much money to spend. To our point on our conversation of our 5-star QB, there's not an appetite at Florida State for overspending, for setting the limits. So let the other schools set those high bars. Let the other schools spend that money. That's not Florida State's style, and you need to understand and appreciate that, and then embrace 4-star wide receiver signings like we had today, or commitments. We'll see after week 4 if that commitment remains.
And we'll throw it over to Vince because Vince, in addition to Brandon Bennett, we also had, of course, Wiley. I think it's pronounced Cadeau, the defensive lineman commit, and so that's two big time commits this week. What are your thoughts, Vince?
Well, first of all, my thoughts are that I have not had a lot of time to dig into who these people are, but I will say it's better to get commitments than not get commitments. And however we feel bad about ourselves about 2-10 and this 5-star quarterback who everybody thought was going to make the switch over to us, and then he didn't do it. And people are just, the social media realm is absolutely crazy right now, wanting to fire everybody, of course, and not just in football, by the way, where I know we're going to get to that. But these guys that committed, would they be Georgia's top line guys? Would they be Alabama's top line guys? I don't know. But I'm happy that people that are actually ranked are actually committing to Florida State. I think what we've seen in the past is this staff, if they find the right kind of guys, can really make chicken salad in a big, big way.
For sure, and you even look at we had Rodney Colton. He's a linebacker and 4-star, named FSU his kind of top choice right now, and he said he's going to commit in July 5th. So hopefully some late fireworks for the Noles. But I think there are a lot of good prospects out there. You're not going to get every one of them, but I like to just kind of real quick bounce over to, I guess it was sort of from last week to this week, the topic du jour, which is, like you said, you lose that 5-star that was on your board, a quarterback that fit your system, and then you lose it to Houston. So my frustrations in that were, it seemed like like something happened, and we may never find out. A very abrupt turn in his recruitment from, hey, yeah, I'm excited. I want to go visit Florida State. It fits the system. It's a good system fit. I think we all agree with that. To nope, I'm good. I've always been Houston. Let's go. So, Doug, what are your thoughts on that kind of cancellation of visit? Someone that was on the board.
So I threw out a tweet instantly that was very critical. And for those who follow me on Twitter at RoHenLawPC, I'm Mr. Positive. I'm always the optimist. I'm always cheering up my team. Because look, what good does getting aggravated and frustrated do? Nothing. Just makes you aggravated and frustrated. You can't change the system. But apparently that got the attention of somebody. I won't name names, but I will tell you it's at the top of the food chain. And almost immediately thereafter, my cell phone rang, and he said, look, I just want you to know, because I know you have a chance to say things that we can't publicly talk about. He wanted 1st-round quarterback money as a freshman. And when I say that, I'm not being facetious. I'm not being I'm not, whatever the word is, I'm drawing a blank, but it's not hyperbolic. He literally wanted the same money that 1st-round quarterbacks are getting as their signing bonus. And we're just not going to be spending money like that. That's not something that's in our range. Now, Houston, who wants to make a splash, who needs a marquee player, who wants to build around somebody, they had some extra money laying around because they're not spending it on their wide receivers, their linemen, their defensive ends. So they can push all their chips into the middle with one quality marquee player to boost the profile of Houston. But that's not what Florida State's trying to do. Florida State's trying to make a well-rounded, balanced team that is competitive. And frankly, coming off of 2-10, we need competitive. We need something that resembles a good product on the field. This quarterback's not going to play this year. How can you spend north of $2 million for somebody that's not going to stay, or that's not going to play this season?
Yeah, just so everyone knows, Vince will probably likely be going in and out just because he is on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. So when he comes back in, we will add him back into the show. But you're absolutely right. It's crazy. It feels like every day, right, that we're saying something to the effect of so and so reset the market, right? Um, and it gets frustrating, and I get it because you want to get the best of the best. You want to get a 5-star quarterback. You want to compete at the highest levels. But you also don't want to spend stupid money. And what I mean by stupid money is a quarterback, most important position on the field. I would be fine with Florida State paying top dollar that a freshman would get. Like if you looked at the current landscape and what are the average elite quarterbacks who are recently out of high school making? Yeah, no problem. I'll spend that. No problem at all. But if we're comparing this to like, hey, it's your senior year and we're trying to pay a freshman what a NFL draft ready quarterback is, I disagree vehemently with doing that. And here's the thing: you guys might be all mad now about it, but the reality is, if we spent that kind of money, let's say we gave in to whatever his requests were, like Houston did, and he was terrible and did not pan out. Well, every single one of you, including myself, including you, Doug, would roast Florida State. I mean, we'd all be like, man, what a loss, right? We spent all this money and we didn't get a lot in return. So I fully believe
I,
in
I seem to recall
paying.
some people that were upset that a certain quarterback from Oregon was still
Yeah.
on the payroll
Mhm.
and probably should have been benched. And but for the money that was invested in him, maybe we would have had the freedom to bench him earlier in the
Yep.
season. But when the boosters are spending so much money and when the NIL collectives are spending so much money, you feel like, well, if we're not playing him, then we're throwing more money away. So they
Yeah.
have to be wise. They have to spend their money on proven commodities. They have to spend their money on players that have a year or two under their belt. I like the Mike Norvell approach. Let's bring in more of those Jared Verses. Let's bring in the players that were unsung players coming out of high school that have developed. I would much rather take that type of project than overpaying a freshman with a high ceiling according to film and according to experts. Look, we've got a couple players on our current roster or that recently departed to Colorado that were high prospects, that were high
Yeah.
star
Luke Ermont.
prospects. And they didn't achieve anywhere near the success that they were projected to achieve. Are some people out there claiming that that's coaching and that's progress and development and Storms needs to be fired? Fine, you can say those things. But taking a proven starter at a D2 team or somebody at a lower level team, I really am feeling good about Tommy Castellanos. No, he's not the best thrower out there. He's not going to be dropping dimes 50 yards down the field, but he's going to work in the Gus Malzahn system, and he comes at a discount to what the premium, I'm gonna leave you Tennessee quarterbacks are going for. I will take Tommy over I'm gonna leave you and see what we can put together on the field. Again, we were fourth from the bottom in terms of offensive production last year,
Yeah.
points per game. All we need is an average offense. Give me an average offense. Let's get 28 points per game, 30 points per game. Give me something that's worth watching. Give me a
Yep.
competitive game in Alabama. I picked it as a win because I just feel like we've got some things working. But give me a competitive game against Alabama, and the rest of the season is going to be looking much more positive.
Yeah, and I'm going to toss this one over to Vince. Vince, especially we look in the past, people want to say, well, like, of course, this 5-star would have been amazing, but you'd never know. It is a crapshoot out of high school. Heck, DJU, right? 5 star, consensus 5 star on all services. You look at other people we've had, Luke Romaha. You look at Chubba Purdy. I mean, these guys were highly, highly regarded coming out of high school. And if you think it's just Florida State that we didn't develop them, well, look at where they went and see if they did great. So keep that in the back of your head, Vince. What do you think about? First of all, you lost the 5 star quarterback prospect to Houston. Apparently, he wanted big time money. What are your feelings on it?
I just think that, 5 stars are only 5 stars in the high school realm. And then once they get to college, you never know what's going to happen. So are you telling me that Florida State should unload the Brinks truck for a kid that, is asking for the world, and we don't really know how he's going to do? We're just not going to do that. There are schools that are going to do that. I know Doug already said it. There are schools that are going to do that. Florida State is not going to do that. The other thing that tells me about what that tells me, though, is that the staff, while they may not be, over the moon about the QB room, they feel good about the QB room, right? About what they're going to be able to put together for next season. All of this turmoil in the social media realm about, we're poor. Why aren't we spending all this money? Why? How comes Houston has all this money and we don't? People, it's much deeper than that. You were
We'll see if he
looking at
comes
it
back.
at this level of depth. There's so much else that's going on behind the scenes that it's not just about a 5 star deciding to go to Houston because Florida State doesn't have the money. That's not accurate. That's not the full picture. I don't personally. I wanted him. I wanted him to come to Florida State because I was intrigued by the talent, right? But we are not going to mortgage our next 3 or 4 years on a kid that is basically shopping himself around.
Yeah, really good point. And I do want to wrap up the recruiting discussion with one other kind of disappointing bit of news that we got, and that's 4 star safety Jaylen Scott, who was a 2027 commit, did flip his commitment to Auburn on the 9th of this month. So he had been, at this point, FSU's second highest rated 2027 pledge. But listen, anytime we get into anything beyond next year's recruiting class, guys, this is going to happen. Like, at 2027 class, forgive me if I'm a terrible fan, but my eyes glaze over when I see 2027 or 2028 class people. What do you think, Doug?
Absolutely. That's what I put out on Twitter. I was like, come on, 2027, we're even talking about this.
Yeah,
Not only that, but the recruiting world was crazy from the Travis Hunter standpoint. And I know that's still a sore spot for a lot of people. But what we're talking about now in this NIL pay for play era is those conversations are going to be going up until signing hour, forget signing day. There's going to be changes. Big flips are going to be the norm, not the exception going forward. And especially as we get ready for the house settlement and everything else that we're going to talk about briefly, the a commitment today means nothing. It really doesn't mean what one of the recruits put out today. He's already committed, but his final recruitment date was being publicized. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? I,
yeah,
I'm with you, Vince. I'm a terrible fan now. I don't even care about recruiting anymore because it doesn't matter until their sophomore or junior year.
yeah,
I care more about the transfer portal than recruiting. And maybe that's because I've been conditioned by it by Mike. Maybe it's because I'm just a realist. Maybe it's because we don't do well in high school recruiting and we only do well in the transfer portal. Fine. Give me another 13-0 team. Give me another 10-2 team. I don't care whether it's high schoolers or transfer portal.
yeah. And Vince, throwing it over to you. Just wrap us up before we get into the house settlement, and we're going to let Doug uh, attack it from sort of the legal standpoint. But Vince, just give us overall, what are your thoughts as of today, June 12th, in the middle of the sea, on recruiting, and also tell the people how many drinks you've had today.
Okay, let's start with the easy thing first. The easy thing first is I'm not worried about recruiting. I'm not worried about it because today I'll be happy, tomorrow I won't be happy. I'm not worried about it. Florida State's going to field a team on August, whatever date that's going to be, and the team they're going to field is going to be the team that wants to be here. If this new coaching staff can put together some semblance of success this season, what I mean by that is 8-4, 9-3, everything's going to take care of itself. Okay, but we do have to see that, and I do agree with that. Now let's get to the tough question. The tough question is how many drinks I've had today. And I don't remember, but it's double digits for sure. And so hold on now. I did a 3-mile run this morning. Okay, so pat me on the back, Doug. Brian, pat me on the back. I'm trying to keep my exercise regimen going, but I think I've probably had about 14 or 15 drinks today. And then yesterday we went on an excursion in Jamaica. Got back to the ship about 2-ish. And so from about 2 to midnight, I probably had about 12 or 13 during that span. So the beverage package is getting a workout, and I will say that I'm getting my money's worth.
Vince is living the dream on the Oasis of the Seas. I am only on drink 1 for a Thursday night. I try to cap myself on work weeks to 1, maybe 1.5. Usually, I don't know about you, Doug, but I'll set it down and be like, that's it. It's a work night or whatever, and then I'll go. What's the harm on one more little pour? And I always wake up the next morning like, I shouldn't have had that. I didn't need it. But that's, hey, such is life. Let's get into it though, Doug. You're here, and I'm so happy you're here because the house settlement, it's here. So give us bullet points, what it means for Florida State, and more broadly, what it means for college football.
There's still a lot of debate generally. However, my opinion is that the House settlement is the end of the beginning of the transformation of the college football landscape. And I say that specifically because throughout Judge Wilkins' order, she routinely and repeatedly kept saying, I am approving this settlement, and we'll talk about that generally, but this is an area where the lawsuits are likely to come. This is an area where the lawsuits are likely to come. This is an area where the lawsuits are likely to come. So for those who are following along at arm's length, kind of like me, I didn't really care about this until a deal was done because it was still so speculative that I didn't want to waste time. We'd spent so much time on the ACC litigation. I need to be a good father and a good husband first. I need to be a business owner and an entrepreneur. FSU litigation came a distant third, but obviously consumed a lot of my time sharing with you all. When it came to the House settlement litigation, this was the plaintiffs, the class, coming together with the defendant, the NCAA, proposing a consent agreement to the judge. And the reason why it took so long is because the judge had to analyze what the consent agreement was, and then take all the opinions of these objectors from the class or from outside the class and determine how to reconcile those objections. Where we ended up was a situation where we have this very clear new order where we have a CSC standard, a commissioner with the help of Deloitte as the clearinghouse that's planning to review any settlement, or excuse me, any NIL agreement that's in excess of $600. And allegedly, the role of Deloitte is determine whether or not that's a fair and reasonable agreement and whether or not all the checks have been taken care of in coming up with a reasonable NIL collective agreement. So the hope from the defendants, from all of the member institutions, is that this will provide a salary cap that they can then rely upon of $20.5 million, an average of the Division I athletic budgets across the board. The problem is that because it's a settlement agreement that is being approved, it's not establishing any legal precedents. It's not evaluating the law. So there's several problems with this issue. Unlike the NFL, where you have a collective bargaining agreement that manages the 3,000 NFL players and includes every single NFL player that signs an NFL contract, here you have 13,000 high school students, I think was the research I did, who do not have a collective bargaining agreement, who do not have a union, who do not have somebody representing them, who have not agreed to any type of restriction on their ability to earn money. And this idea that Deloitte is going to be determining and setting what the standard is for a reasonable agreement for the NIL puts an arbitrary cap on someone's earning potential. And that violates the presently held antitrust laws that prohibit the NCAA from doing what it wants to do. So Congress needs to step in. There needs to be some federal legislation that carves out the NCAA from the antitrust um, code section and allows the NCAA to function as a monopoly because, and for the right reasons, there should not be a competing NCAA organization. The NCAA should be a monopoly. The NCAA should have the right to set certain standards. So, what's going to happen is that if these defendants really do want to set a salary cap, the only institutions that are going to have the capacity to enforce this are going to be the conferences. The SEC, the bell cow of all Division I sports, is going to have the obligation of enforcing its members' adherence to this salary cap. That's going to be the question. And then, real quickly, without getting too deep into it, the two other issues are Title IX. Where does that come up in this discussion? Because it was not addressed in the briefs and in the discussions with Judge Wilkins. And then, where are the roster limitations going to be applied and enforced? They said 105 on the football roster, but you've got some that are grandfathered in because we don't want to penalize those bottom tier players who would otherwise be kicked off because of the roster limits. So that's going to be something that's going to be litigated. And then, just from a personal standpoint, to throw out yet another topic to decide, one of the things that this settlement is not going to accomplish is providing a reasonable degree of parity in the sports, because the limit applies to the university, not the sports itself. So if Georgetown, who doesn't really care about football, wants to put $20.5 million into their basketball roster, or they're going to be able to dominate with all of the best players. And it's a lot easier to do on a basketball team than a football team. So there are a host of problems still to come. This is not by any stretch of the imagination settled. And I promise I will be continuing to appear with you all to explain the litigation as it comes down. But if you thought the ACC litigation took a while, wait until you see how long all these other lawsuits take.
Yeah. And I do want to say thanks. That explanation was awesome, Doug. Just for the chat, I want to say let's try to keep the potentially controversial or political talk to a minimum. Let's focus on just Florida State and have a good time together. But Vince, I'm going to throw it over to you. Vince, what do you think right now about the House settlement, and how do you think from a Florida State perspective, it affects us?
From a Florida State side, I talked about this a few shows ago. I only care about the logo, right? And I care about the logo and its ability to compete at the highest levels in whatever sports we choose to do that in. Right now, it's the wild, wild west. We talk about it all the time. People can spend whatever kind of money they want and put it wherever they want. But you can't drive kids to meet with an NIL entity, though, apparently. But anyway, I just want at some point for us to be able to go into every season knowing that there is some kind of level playing field across the board for the teams that want to compete at the highest level. I know that I'm not a naive guy. Like, I'm the old part, right, Ryan? I know that there has been, money guys and bagmen for years and years and decades. It's always been going on. I get that. All this stuff is above board now. Let's keep it above board. So however long the House settlement takes, and I know, Doug, it's very complicated. I mean, hugely complicated. I mean, you brought us some things that most people don't even think about with the Title IX thing, right? People don't even think about that. The only thing they're thinking about is the football side. It's going to take a long time for us to see this, for the dust to actually settle. The piece that I'm looking for, first of all and foremost, is to get the coaches some kind of idea on the roster from one season to the next. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're talking about how difficult it is, Ryan, Doug, imagine if you walked into your office on Monday morning every week and you did not know who was going to be there. How are you going to dole out the work? You're going to end up trying to do it all yourself, and it's not going to go as well, right? So we got to give these staffs we got to give them some kind of stability on knowing who they're working with from one season to the next, and literally lock those doors from one
Yep.
season to the next, so they know who they're dealing with.
Yeah, and from not just the House settlement, but from opinions given by conferences in the different conference meetings that were just a few weeks ago, even though there were some differences on exact timelines, overall majority of all conferences say, hey, there should be one portal window. Keep it simple, make it after the season, and I think everyone, aside from the House settlement, can agree that that's a good thing for college football. Because right now, two seems kind of crazy, and I feel like, yeah, one after the season feels about right. Yeah, it's like the off season. You
Mhm.
finish up, bowl games are done, championship games are done, reload the rosters, makes total sense. But I do
Doug,
want to move on.
Doug,
Oh, go
hold on,
ahead,
Doug.
Doug.
We were talking last week, Doug, about how Link Jarrett had to deal with recruiting nonsense during the playoffs. It's nuts.
Auburn got to host people, or no, who was it? I forget who had made the comment, but somebody else, Clemson. Clemson's home from the super regionals. Clemson's not playing in the super regionals. They're getting to host players. The coaches are getting to meet. They don't have to worry about 3 games. They don't have to worry about losing a game with 2 outs and 2 strikes,
Yeah,
forcing a 3-game series. I was appalled when I first started watching college baseball to learn that the draft was going on day 3 of the College World
it was
Series.
wild.
Now you're telling me the transfer portal is open in the middle of super regionals? It's
Yeah,
complete and utter nonsense.
it really is. I agree with both of your takes, like 100%. Clarity. I think that's what most fans and coaches and conferences want. I think they all want
Mhm.
clarity. They want clear cut rules or at least some guidelines that they can say, I can plan my calendar. It's no different, Vince. Vince and I have worked in IT on sales, and I'm sure, Doug, you do a fair amount of sales and marketing type stuff too.
Mhm.
You talk about when we're pitching to potential businesses who, we want to get their business, right? All they want is predictability. They want to, hey, here's our budget we want to set aside for in our industry, IT. Um, this is our spend. What is our spend every year? They don't want to be surprised by like hourly bill. Now you work in hourly, completely different industry, but in IT, it's like no, we want to know. It's
Mhm.
100K next year. Period. End of story. And I think not necessarily dollar amounts, but in just predictability of the season. Coaches, conferences, they want to know when are we going to have our players? When are we going to lose our players? And I don't think that's too much to ask for. And Vince, I do want to point out and say hello and shout out some people in the chat. We have Breeze in Georgia, of course. Suzanne Bajor, thanks for joining again. Tomcat, as always. Friends call me Sean. Again, thank you guys all for joining. Doyle, as always, watching the show. Doyle, I posted the YouTube link, man. One day I'm going to see you in person at the next event we do, probably the Alabama game. You always see us, and I'm going to personally take your phone from you and subscribe to the channel on YouTube and download the app and add it to your home screen.
Mhm.
My man's struggling with the YouTube over here, but we love you, Doyle. But aside from that, I do want to bring up one more, or actually two more Florida State related stories, just so we
Oh,
don't get ahead.
before you get away from that, Ryan, we're
Yeah.
talking about the commenters and your posters. I
Hmm.
want to make sure that I answer Brett's question because he put a good question on there. And
Oh yeah.
as much as we want the viewers, engaged viewers who are actually putting in their comments, are even better. So make sure that you're commenting and engaging with us, and we'll answer your questions. You can do a super chat, and we'll definitely answer your questions. But I did see Brett's question and wanted to make sure that I answered that. You raise a good point based on what I stated, and that is exactly right. Because the NCAA is, here's your SAT word of the day, feckless. They have no true authority. They have no ability to enforce their rules because if they try to engage in some kind of punishment, anybody is going to challenge them in court. And what's going to come up is the antitrust rules, and they're going to lose, and they're going to lose the perception of being in control. So the NCAA is all bluster right now. It's the conferences that have true authority. And to your point, yes, this does push us closer to and usher in the idea of a super league, because it's going to be the conferences that have all the power. And if the conferences have all the power, then the power two is going to be looking at this and saying, not only do we dominate the other conferences, but we also now dominate the NCAA. They can't do anything. So, yes, it gets us one step closer to a super league. It will be curious to see what the opinions are and what steps are taken next if we continue in that trajectory.
Great question, Brett, and even better answer, Doug. Um, I was thinking, guys, the next story we're going to get to, an Office reference. You guys know I love The Office. It reminds me, and I'll get to it here in a second, when Toby's in the church for a wedding, and he walks in the church, and then he's like, he looks up at, like, I think it's like Jesus or something. And he goes, "Why you always gotta be so mean to me?" Uh, that's what I felt when I read that Micahi Danzy uh, has been injured and not partaking in the outdoor track and field championship, because now we don't know what that means for football, but it's still frustrating, man. When I saw that news, I think all the comments were like, "Why, you can't keep getting away with this," like, and all that kind of stuff. Like, why does this keep happening? So Vince hasn't talked in a while. Let's throw it over to Vince. Vince, what do you think? I know you've been on a boat, but did you see that Danzy got injured or minor injury?
Yeah, I did see that, and the reason why I saw it was because actually at the sports bar I'm at, they had the track and field on here, and I stopped by to see what Micah was doing, and then I looked at my phone like, oh well, he's hurt right now, and it reminds me, just like The Office, right? Reminds me of the meme of the martial arts guy just getting kicked in the cojones over and over and over and over again. That's what it feels like right now. As a Florida State fan, I get it, but more so, like, we don't, like you said, Ron, we don't know the extent of the injury there. With a track and field runner, it could be something as simple as a pull, right? And you're not going to run. So, so I'm hoping that it's something simple like that, and for him to heal up. I'm not really in tune with when the track and field season starts and stops. Maybe is this the end of the season for them? I think
Mhm.
it probably is. So he's not going to be able to accomplish maybe what he wanted to accomplish this season. But get him in the ice bucket, in the tub, whatever needs to happen, because we've got a major football season we are about to embark on, and he is a big part of it.
And as the resident Cuban on the show, I cannot allow the mispronunciation to slide by. Cojones. Cojones is the appropriate word. Cojones. That's
Doug,
your
have
Cuban
you ever seen
SAT word of the
Dexter?
day.
Have you ever seen
Hold on,
Dexter?
I'm Italian. It's a little bit different.
Doug, have you ever seen Dexter?
I have.
There's a Cuban lawyer that he actually helps Dexter for like a whole season, and the whole season he just goes "Coño," like over and over. And I was thinking about you the other day just watching that. Really good character, good actor too. I like the guy. I forget his name, but he's really entertaining. But I'll say this: for now, I'm going to pull a Jimbo and just going to say, hey, when asked about his injury, I'm just going to say he's got a knee, right? He's got a knee. He's day to day. We'll see how it goes, and then I'm sure we'll get an update not from coaches about the injury, but probably from practice reports or who's seen out, or in a boot or not in a boot, and all that is always fun for us Florida State fans in the last couple of years, because it's always a surprise when we start. I love nothing makes me drink heavier than when we start either spring or fall, and we get the who's not participating in spring, and you're like, I didn't know any of these guys were going to be out, and there's a lot of players here, but we'll see. Hopefully, we're in better health. We're going to wrap up the football story real quick. I was driving the other day, pulling into the Wendy's drive-through, and I got the tweet that Zach Arnett, former Mississippi State head coach for a brief
Mhm.
stint, has been hired as a defensive analyst. Now, guys, I'm not going to get into rumors and speculation. There's all kinds of fun, and I get it, kind of humorous rumors about how his time at UNLV came to an end. Um, the rumor is, and this is not reported substantiated, I looked it up, but it's a lot of message board material, and it's crazy enough to believe it because he was let go just out of nowhere. But speculatively, that he had fallen asleep in a Wendy's drive-through and maybe have been partially nude. And I don't know that to be true. But at minimum, I could see someone falling asleep in the Wendy's drive-through, maybe drunk or something. Yeah,
As the resident criminal defense attorney, it is not illegal to be in your car
hmm
asleep and nude. That does not violate any laws. It's only once you open the door and
yep.
step out, or alternatively pull up to the Wendy's window, that it then becomes problematic. If you are just choosing to sleep in your car in the nude, I can defend that all day long. You are
Yeah.
well within your right. Your house and your home are
Expectation of
similarly
privacy, right?
considered habitations,
Yeah.
and you are allowed to be both nude and with a firearm in both your house and your car.
Which would make sense potentially if the cops gave him a break because there was no police report, there was nothing like that. However, that kind of thing could probably get you fired from a coaching position. But Vince, I'm going to toss it over to you. I am personally
It's kind
always,
of like riding a motorcycle with a co-ed that's not your wife on the back.
yeah, absolutely, and Vince, I am always a fan of getting any former head coaches as defensive analysts because you have everything to gain and
Mhm.
nothing to lose. Really, it's just an additional position, and for what it's worth, he was a pretty good recruiter.
We've got not one, not two, but three coaches in waiting now.
hmm
Yeah, and there are plenty of Wendy's in Tallahassee too. So, but I don't know much about his backstory. I mean, I know that, right? But as far as his ability as a recruiter is concerned, I'm going to leave that as I hope to see. I hope to see some of that. The more, the merrier. And how long was he at Mississippi? Was it Mississippi State?
A year,
A year, maybe,
yeah.
maybe. So there's really not a lot of evidence there to know whether this is a net positive. Um, I would rather that Florida State not necessarily become a halfway house, but if the end result of the halfway house is guys getting their lives turned around, and in the meantime we win tons and tons of games, maybe a title or two, then get the halfway house going.
Look, that's what Saban was doing. Saban was a rehab house for a bunch of coaches, and they came through and got rehabilitated and then went out. Let me say, speaking of coaching and recruiting, this is completely from left field. You guys don't know about this, but I actually engaged with on Twitter. I love Twitter. Twitter gets you places you can't otherwise be. Some of you may recognize the name Tim Brewster.
Oh
And
yeah,
Brewster
great
was a
recruiter.
premier recruiter under Jimbo. And I don't know the story, and I haven't talked to anybody about it yet, but I'm using this as an opportunity to launch a campaign. You guys are the first ones to hear this. Garnet and Old will get credit for this coming to fruition. Tim Brewster wants to end his career at Florida State. Of all the schools he has been at, he has loved Florida State the most. He has enjoyed Tallahassee. It's a great balance between college town and big enough to support, the capital and fun things to do and attract quality talent. And he knows at the end of the day, Florida State's logo does still hold weight even after 2-10. And so I've been talking to him all week this week, and I don't know who to talk to. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know who is responsible for those kinds of decisions other than Mike himself. But I know that there is an elite recruiter in this country that wants to be a Florida State Seminole. And that might be something that we can start pushing into the universe to make a reality.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, let's get some. You can hate Jimbo for a lot of things, but My man could recruit, and he had some people on his staff that could recruit. I would love Tim Brewster was in South Florida specifically,
Hmm.
uh, incredible for us. I mean, he was. You could say a lot of people were responsible, but he was responsible for some huge signings for Florida State going in, especially into the national championship years, right? And
Hmm.
so, absolutely bring Tim Brewster back. I've even said, man, even someday if Jimbo wanted to be an analyst, I'd be totally fine with that.
Hmm.
Um, he's getting older. I think people always think like Jimbo will end up being a head coach somewhere again. Maybe he will be. Maybe he will. But I could also see him pulling a Gus Malzahn and just being like, "Nah, I just want to kind of do something lower key."
Yeah.
Um, but
Being a
yeah,
head coach is hard. That's
it
why I
is.
don't get on Mike. That's why I don't get on Twitter and kick people in the nuts. That
Mhm.
job is 24/7, 365. There are no breaks. You have a spotlight on you, and 2-10 is not acceptable, but give the man a chance. He already coached through COVID. He put together a winning team, an undefeated team. Give the man the opportunity. Look, if it's 2-10 again this year with Tony White and Gus Malzahn, then okay. But look at who is out there right now. You look at Mario Cristobal, even as the number one offense in points per game last year, you still have Georgia Tech. You still have situations where the coach directly played into a W, and it wasn't about personnel choices or anything like that. So I think Mike is a good guy. I think Mike is a capable coach. I think Mike has a good message. He needs to decide I'm not the number one recruiter and I need some help and bring in the best recruiters in the country to help out.
I'm gonna throw it over to Vince. Vince, what do you think, Tim Brewster?
Hello, hello, am I there? Yeah, I
Yeah,
would love to have him back. And when he left, there was all the bad blood that I have because of Jimbo, and I have some. I'm harboring some grudges about that, rightly so, I believe. But he was never part of that, right? He he moved on, went to other schools, and he continued to recruit, recruit, recruit. So whatever, if he's going to come back, open arms, bring him back. Whether he's going to be a coach or not, I don't care. Maybe he's behind the scenes. Maybe he's doing personnel in general. I don't know, but I think it's a net positive, a huge net positive to have him back on staff in some form or fashion, whatever that is.
absolutely. And uh, guys, it's been a really good time talking about football, but I do want to leave time here. We got about 13, 14 minutes left. I think what we need is a kind of post exhale, a chance to air excitement for the future, air grievances for what happened in game one. But I'm gonna start with Doug because Doug, you're our baseball nut. Doug, overall, you look at the Florida State baseball season. You look at how it went in the playoffs, right, and just short of making it to Omaha. What are your thoughts from game one? The way that one ended and kind of wrapping it up. What are your overall thoughts on the season?
I appreciate the opportunity to provide closure for both myself and any other baseball fans, animals of Section B that are watching. We had an exceptionally talented team this year. We had a more talented team than we had a right to expect after losing the talent we left last year. And that's a testament to Link and the transfer portal. We knew Jamie Arnold was going to be good. We didn't know Jamie Arnold was going to get the yips in the middle of the year. But there has been one glaring problem with this team from game one, and that was the bullpen. We knew we didn't have a shutdown closer. We knew we didn't have reliable arms that could go a reasonable distance in the middle of a game. So what we needed was an offense that would outscore opponents by 5 to 7 runs getting into the seventh inning, and then just try to hang on through the last 2 or 3 innings. And what we ran into with the super regionals in Oregon State was a home run clubbing team that We managed to subdue in game one with Vellini, which I think that was the right call. I
Yep.
think starting Vellini in game one of the Supers was appropriate. Unfortunately, I honestly believe we pulled him one batter too early, and by then starting our closer in the with one out to get in the seventh, we were putting him in a position where he needed to get not six but seven outs, and we didn't realize it, but that caused a problem because he was able to get the six outs, and a good closer should be able to get you six outs. We didn't have any business being in game one, but when you find yourself with two outs and two strikes in game one with a 3-run lead, then suddenly you're beginning to believe we just need this out, and we still have Jamie Arnold, the number one draft pick, going Saturday.
Yep.
I love baseball, and what I love about baseball, and I think I've said it on this show, is because you don't know what is going to happen when the pitcher winds up and gets ready to throw the next pitch. You're going to see something you've never seen before. Unfortunately, in game one of the Supers, we could not get that 27th out. And so the next pitch ends up being a ball in play and then a walk. And then suddenly we have the tying run on second on a pass ball. And then we have a base hit and we have a tie game. And then we're going into the 10th inning with a tired closer and no bullpen relief. I went to Omaha with my dad. There was one season, I want to say it was like 2017, and we'll get to Sean in a second, or Sean in a second. The starter comes in and has a 2.80 ERA. They show it up on the massive board out in right field. Then they bring in the middle reliever who's got a 1.6 ERA after pitching 20 relief appearances. And the closer comes in with 30 innings under his belt, 26 saves, and has a 0.89 ERA. If you're not pitching like that in the cavernous Omaha confines, you're not going to get very far. So whether we lost to Oregon State in a 3-game series or got beat by Louisville in the first game and we did 2 in barbecue, I liked that so many top seeds got beat. I liked that it was an open field. Not a single team in the 2024 College World Series is in the College 2025 World Series. That is the parity that baseball provides and affords. And it was a wide open season. But for those who thought maybe this is the year, I want to take that thought from your mind, because we had 3 co-aces. We had 3 quality aces to start the game. We did not have the pitching to close out the game. And as good as Myles Bailey was, our freshman home run clubber, and as good as some of our other offensive players were, our premier shortstop, Lodise, didn't show up in the postseason. And unfortunately, that's a reminder that bats do get cold. You have to go to Omaha with pitching first. And if we don't spend $1.5 million on a shutdown closer and another $1 million on 2 or 3 intermediate relief arms, then we're going to find ourselves in the same spot next year. Link is the guy. And to your point, Ryan, the question on Facebook and on Twitter has been, what about Micah Posey? Micah Posey has done a really good job with our pitchers. Once again, I'm Mr. Rosy attitude and everything's positive. Let people do what they need to do. We did not have the quality of talent in our bullpen, and I don't think any degree of coaching would have overcome that.
Yeah, Vince, I'm going to throw it over to you with a comment from Parker. Parker, contributor to the show, writes, "Tough to send 3 LHPs to the into that OSU lineup." I agree with that. Can't avoid injuries, but the team played well. It isn't like they made the top 8 and then didn't make it out of the regionals. Good point. I'll throw it over to you to Vince. I know I wanted to read that because we love Parker, but what is your take on the baseball season, Vince?
Well, I don't know. You may have already said this because I had to keep popping it. I mean, Starlink is great, but there's been a little fluctuation here, Mr. Musk. We need to figure this out. But think about all the production that we lost from last year, and everybody was talking about what is this team going to be like? How is Link going to put this team together? This team made it to the Super Regional, and with even with what happened in that game, and trust me, when we lost that game internally, I'm like, we may win the second game, but like that to me, that was our chance. That was our chance. That first game was our chance. Link is the guy. I agree with you, Doug. And all this commotion about Micah Posey is like, trust me, if Link doesn't think he's going to get the job done, Micah Posey's not going to be here very long. Link is on a mission. And if you ever, I've never met the man, but I when I look at someone and I see it in their eyes, that man is on a mission, and he's not going to let anything stand in the way, including being overly, uh, uh, what's the word, gracious with a job for
Kind.
somebody that, yeah,
Right.
that's not getting the job done. It will get fixed. And you're right. If they don't start throwing a bunch of money at the middle relief and the closing route, which I know they're going to do, but say they didn't, yes, then we have a different conversation to have. But as far as the season's concerned, I'm very proud of the season. I'm very proud of the season, considering what we had last year and coming in this year. I think they exceeded what I thought they were going to be able to do.
And to that
Agreed.
point, the goal every year is a national championship. And until there is a national championship, you're going to be falling short of your hopes and dreams. But as to Vince's point, as far as expectations, it was frustrating to lose the two of the last three to North Carolina. Turns out they were a pretty good team. It's frustrating to not win the ACC. Turns out Duke and North Carolina were pretty tough, and that's why they ended up in the championship game and not Florida State. It was tough to know that we were that close, but again, I think that close was an illusion and covered the realities of the fact that we were two in barbecue in Omaha. The teams are too good out there. Everyone is on fire. Everyone is coming to the plate batting 400 in the postseason. And it was our pitching that got us as far as it did, but our pitching was incomplete and couldn't get us any further.
Doug, who are you rooting for, Doug?
Murray State, baby, Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina,
I
yep.
want the underdogs. I've got a niece that went to Coastal Carolina. I love the story out of Murray State, and I was looking today at the pictures of their facility. If you haven't seen that on Twitter, go check it out. Just go check out Murray State's facilities. I mean, to know that they're going to have first a monumental upgrade in their facilities after the season and the change that they're pocketing is a very positive thing. I didn't know where Murray State is. For all of you who don't know where Murray State is, it's in Kentucky. I was wondering where Murray State is because there is no state of Murray. It is in Kentucky. But I do want to finish up with another thought after we get done with the baseball, so you all close that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say, you know who I'm voting for. I'm voting for anyone other than the SEC. That's what I'm voting for. That's my vote. But Vince, I do want to finish up the show by asking. You've mentioned you've had a bunch of drinks. What have you been drinking mostly today?
Before you
Today,
get to that topic, let me get to
okay.
one other
Yeah, go ahead.
substantive topic, and we'll let Vince close out on that.
Not substance
Just
topic.
just before we went to air, the Board of Trustees meeting finished up a regularly scheduled meeting this afternoon. And interestingly enough, the trustee Collins, the president of the Board of Trustees, concluded the meeting by saying, I'm not saying what we're going to talk about or when we're going to talk about it, but please be flexible in your scheduling next week because we will be having another Board of Trustees meeting on short notice, and it will be a 24-hour emergency scheduling notice. So I don't know what's going on. I definitely don't think it's Mike Norvell being fired. So whoever was thinking that was the case, that's not going to happen. But whether it's some private equity coming into the equation, whether it's some discussion about house settlement, which why would that require an emergency meeting? or if we're talking about the ACC settlement being complete and conference realignment questions, it will be interesting to see what comes up next week. And who knows, maybe I'll join you next Thursday for yet another interesting legal development. But keep out an ear for the Board of Trustees meeting because something newsworthy is coming next week.
I like them. All right, Vince. Kicking it back over to you, Vince. What have you been drinking?
I've probably tried everything. By the way, if you are a Miami Vice fan, and not the show, but the drink, depending on what cruise line you're on, Miami Vice is a different thing. So if you're on Royal Caribbean and you want to get a Miami Vice with the Curacao on top, you have to ask for that, just so you know. Norwegian, that's how they do it, but here you got to ask for it. But no, I've had just about everything that's available because when you have the things at your fingertips, it's time to try new things, right? So I've had a lot to drink. I've had a lot to eat, but I want to say that I've given out probably 50 plus of these ducks with the Garnet Old logo and then the QR code on the back. And there are ducks everywhere, by the way. People are hiding them all over the place. And if you are on Oasis of the Seas right now and you found one of our ducks and you are actually watching this show, success. It worked. But hopefully we did some entertaining things for you here tonight, whether you're a Florida State fan or not, college football fan, sports fan. If you're into sports legal issues, like Garnet Old is a place where you can come and get a lot of great information, entertainment, fandom, and if you go on a cruise ship sometime, Ryan might be there, and Ryan might be giving these ducks out. So I've got 3 more to give out. I'm going to give them out here as soon as the show is done. But Ryan and Doug, I appreciate you being patient with me and with Starlink and all the things. But I think, obviously, it actually went pretty decently.
It went really well. I am every day shocked that 10 years ago when I went on a cruise ship, it was a struggle on Wi-Fi to even get email. To now think that you can stream in 720p live for a show across the world from the middle of the ocean is wild to me, and it's only going to get better. So, Vince, it was fun. The only difference between you and I, if I was on the cruise ship right now, Vince, I would be in a robe and I would be plastered, not just tipsy. But, guys, it has been a pleasure. It's 8 o'clock. It's been a great show, but out of respect for our man Doug Rohan, I usually do an outro with the Garnet Old outro, but we're going to do things a little differently tonight. But we still are going to say screw ESPN internally. And Vince, what else are we going to say?
We are going to say send Chiefs all the damn time because we should send them on a cruise ship. That would be a lot of fun, actually.
Yep.
But yes, we should send them because whenever the Chiefs are involved, a good time happens.
All right, everyone. Doug, you're the man. And everyone out there, go Noles.